LFC Daytrippers, brought to you by bookmakers.com.
Good evening and welcome to the LFC Daytrippers. It is Thursday night, and for the first time in a long time, we've got a viewer's voice. So it's looking like a bunch of new signings in here for the January transfer window. Some faces we haven't seen in a while. Ron, how are you tonight?
Good. Glad to be back. Looking forward to getting into the chat with you guys. Nice to see everyone again.
Yeah, it's be nice to get some different opinions, on the show. This is what the show's here for. Bring the viewers' opinions out and get them broadcast. Jonathan, how are you? How was your Christmas and New Year's?
I'm good, yeah. Good Christmas. First proper Christmas with Santi, so it was all go here. Nice distraction from the Reds. So
yeah,
good to be back. Good to be back.
We can all use a little distraction from Liverpool, some of these performances we've been putting in. And Kev, a little bit of experience in the midfield here to carry us through.
How's everybody? All good?
All good, Kev.
Oh man, it's like that, isn't it? It's just like, how are they going to get this to function? It's up to the boss. He's got to sort it out, and there's no better way to start it off by getting 3 points at the weekend. Well, it'll be easy. We've seen tonight. There is no easy games, so it's going to be fun. That's all it is. Yeah. We're along for the ride. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, up and down. I mean, it's hurting for Liverpool's performance at the moment, but I mean, the Premier League has actually been pretty damn exciting this year. Like, nobody's just running away with it. You're getting upsets all over the place. Everton are garbage. So, if nothing else, it's good to watch the other. It's good to watch the other 19 teams play when they're not beating us. So, but it's been a while since I've been on here, and I've been listening to the shows that Gav and the fellas have been putting out for a little while, and I've just been building opinions up. So I see Gav has titled tonight's episode "The Midfield Mistake," and that's the first thing I want to talk with you guys about. Is I'm starting to think, having listened to people discussing our current situation with the midfield and how we got into this situation, I'm starting to feel like Liverpool made a massive mistake in their transfer policy with the signing of Thiago. To me, it's really starting to feel like our expectations as fans of what we wanted in the midfield is it couldn't just be Milner, Henderson, Gini Wijnaldum. Fabinho's good to have in there, but we got to have more creativity coming from the midfield. And we go outside the box. We buy an older player, proven, that's done it already. Doesn't fit into the mold of our midfield three at the time. And since then, we've only kind of augmented the midfield with more of those players. And it seems like everybody now is going, we need those grafters, we need yard dogs, we need guys that are willing to do the donkey work in the midfield sort of thing. And when we had that, people were crying out that we needed more creativity from our midfield. And I'm not seeing a lot of people putting their hands up and saying like, boy, when I called for that, I guess I was wrong. What we actually need is engines and legs and guys that are willing to do the ugly work in the midfield. And like, Ron, I'll come to you first on this. Like, am I being completely crazy? Because to be fair, Thiago is one of the players on the team that makes me gasp audibly. There's not a lot of things in football that a player does that makes you just stop and go like, wow. And Thiago is a guy that provides that to the team. But do we need to go back to how we thought about our midfield before Thiago and let our creative players be creative and let the midfield do everything else?
I think you're right about how that's played out in terms of where the majority of the opinion has went and flip-flopped from one place to the other. laying it on Thiago specifically, though, I think that's a little bit harsh. From a result standpoint, especially for the last, especially since the World Cup, without Thiago, we haven't really had a midfield that did much of anything. So Fabinho's been going through bouts of bad form. Henderson's had some injury bugs and then come back, had a good performance, had a bad performance, good performance. So nothing really consistent. Um, but Thiago's been the one constant in the midfield, or at least we're getting something out of that player that we can hang our hats on. In terms of a strategy, I think the big problem here is not necessarily that we bought Thiago; it's that we weren't honest and ruthless enough about what was going on in the other two positions. Going into previous windows, there's been a lot of rumblings about needing to have a Fabinho sort of backup to help manage his minutes. Uh, Henderson, everyone loves, had been playing well for quite some time, but we all knew his legs were racking up a lot of minutes. Was going to need another set of legs to help him out there. And what we've put in place was a 19-year-old Harvey Elliott, who everyone, myself included, thinks is doing a great job for what he's been putting on the table. But it's not the same type of performance that we need. And it's not his fault. He's doing the best he can do where he's being put. It's just does where he's being placed and where he's being used, does it really work for how the team plays? Fair question. Not so sure it does. You've got Naby Keita. Can't, I won't even say hasn't stepped to the plate. He can't. He's just not on the field enough. Same story with Ox. As much as I love him, I think the interesting thing to me that's happened recently is you would have both Ox and Harvey Elliott be available. Harvey Elliott being arguably recognized as a more forward player, playing in the midfield, with Ox then playing in front of Harvey. You know, apparently, I'm not saying Klopp doesn't know what he's doing. Not even arguing that at all. Just I don't understand the wisdom of it, and that's because I have a small football brain. So
We
that it is what it is. But I think that's what that those are the things that kind of stand out to me.
Yeah, I mean, we've all definitely got small football brains. That's how you end up doing this sort of gig. Certainly not by being a big brain. Now, to clarify before I come to you, Jonathan, is I'm not saying the problem with our midfield is that it has Thiago in it, because it can't be denied that he's been our probably best form midfielder this entire season. I'm saying is the idea of, instead of having three grafters there, we decided, and especially as fans, and I think that's something that we're going to come back around to towards the end of the show, but like the fans, we got it in our minds that what we needed to get to the next level was more creativity from the midfield, but we didn't think about what we were sacrificing from that. So
Yeah,
I don't
I,
know if I'm talking complete bollocks. I'm getting absolutely slammed in the comments, so I possibly might be.
no, look, I don't think Thiago's not the issue. The issue is balance in the midfield. We don't have the runners. So Thiago would be fine in a fully functional midfield with two athletes either side of him. So the problem for Thiago at the minute is he's been forced to do a lot of running, which that's not his game. He's probably not designed to do. The issue is the other side, where Henderson has totally fallen off a cliff physically, and Fabinho, like, I don't think anyone could see the fall off Fabinho coming. Maybe he looked a little bit tired at the end of last season, but he's totally fell off a cliff as well and looks physically done at the minute. So the issue, I guess, isn't Thiago. It's the fact that the other parts of the midfield are not functioning. And then he starts to look a little bit exposed because he wasn't bought to be a defensive type midfielder and to be tracking runners. He was bought to dictate the play and control the game, where now he's been
Right.
forced to
Well,
run, tackle, press.
that's where I'm saying is the mistake there. Like, is that the planning of the team?
Yeah, the
Because
mistake is not the signing of Thiago, it's the
signing of
failure
a
to
player
rectify.
like Thiago.
It's the failure to rectify the other parts of midfield. Like, for argument's sake, we have Elliot and Thiago on the one team. Like, that just cannot and does not work. Like, so the balance is totally off there. You've got two similar type players on either side of midfield who lack physicality, lack athleticism, and lack real defensive nous. So the balance is totally off. Thiago would be fine if you put in, say, a Casado beside him, and I don't know, a Bellingham. If that was your three in starting midfield next year, we'd have no issues there. But in saying that, I'm starting to think that midfield signs alone is not going to rectify the issues at the club. But look, that's for another night. At the minute, we're talking about midfield tonight. The key there is balance. We really lack balance in midfield, and players who I suppose Klopp had faith in have just physically declined. And look, that's Henderson and Fabinho owe this club nothing. They've been great players for 4 or 5 years for the club, and they've won it all. But unfortunately, sometimes your time is up at the club, and like we really need to get in more athletic, more dynamic, and more pacey midfielders. And I think then Thiago would then look a lot better. But in saying that, now Thiago's pushing on as well, so I don't know. Every time I look at the game, I'm thinking, do we need 4 midfielders? Do we need 3? We're just going around in circles. But I'll let Kev have his spoken. I just think it's balance, and Thiago's getting exposed because the midfield balance is off kilter.
You guys are you guys are all right, but at the same time, you're all wrong, because in 2022, that squad won more games of football than any other club in Europe. That's just a fact. That includes the bad run that we were on up until the 31st of December. The problem is not just the midfield, it's combination. You go back to when we signed Thiago, we didn't commit to a full change. We just decided he's come in from Bayern. He's had Joshua Kimmich on one side of him. He's had Goretzka next to him. And it was pretty much coming into the same thing. You had 2 dogs of war in the middle of the park at Bayern and Thiago. He was coming into exactly the same thing. And look what he went on to achieve in the time that he's been at the club. He wins the ball back more than anyone else. He runs his arse off. He's technically a beautiful footballer. And I make the same kind of sounds as Ron sometimes when he's like, oh, ooh, those kind of noises that are, different times of the day and night when you should be doing something else. But it's not just the midfield that's the problem. The forwards have changed. The press always came from the front, and it was supplemented by a midfield. The forwards and the pressing style changed with the forwards that when we changed the forwards. And from there back, it hasn't been right. Now, you can talk about Naby, Ox, guaranteed, shouldn't have been at the club. Probably 2 years ago, they should have both been sold. I definitely 100% believe that Ox would have been sold in the summer if it wasn't for his injury. And it's just unfortunate that you're in a catch-22 situation with players, who are into the last year of their contract, and when one of them gets a 3-month-long injury, the other can turn around and say, well, I'm not going to get any better money anywhere else. I'll see out my contract and take my bonus, my signing bonus when I leave. Thank you very much. Register me, don't register me. That's your problem. I don't care. Because that's what's happened with one of them. And Ox will try, and he has tried ever since he's come back from his injury. When he's available, he'll get on the pitch, he'll do a job. He's had a couple of decent games. And it's not from a want of effort. It's just his body won't let him do what his head wants to do. And that's the other problem with the drop-off that we've seen in performances from the midfield, from the likes of Henderson and Fabinho. Their head knows what they want to do. It's muscle memory. It's like they've been coached this way for the last 5 years. They know how to press. They know how to counter-press. And the mind knows where they should be. The body's half a second behind or a second behind. And they miss out on the press just. They've just been played through. That's why we're getting so many chances. We have the second highest amount of chances created in the league. But we're conceding one of the highest. It's never as bad as what you think, and it's never as good as you think it is either. Yes, sides are getting better chances against us. The back four is looking more exposed because sides are able to get through that press. The fixing it is, I don't know, because we'll get onto that in a minute. How do you go about fixing it? But for right now, that's how I see this problem. I don't see this problem as being solely a midfield issue. I see it as a combination of forwards learning, coming into the club new, learning how we play, and a midfield that's aging and can't do what they used to do. And you're stuck in with the real life world of football with players who are running down the contracts. They're perfectly entitled to do. It's the club's responsibility to move them on when they didn't. Players, Naby Keita is never going to get a contract elsewhere that he's got now. No, nowhere in a million years. Nor is Ox. They're never going to get to a club that's better than where they are now. So why on earth would they leave? They'll maximise their income at the end of the season, like they're perfectly entitled to do. And then the rebuild, the third part of the rebuild kicks in the summer. Because the forward line has been refreshed. If Bobby extends his new contract, I think he'll be the oldest forward at the club at 31, which don't mind. The back line has been pretty much covered. It's going to need to be looked at in a couple of years' time. But for this upcoming summer, the back line is fine. I'm okay with it. It's the midfield that needs to have that phase 2 rebuild for Klopp to be able to take that squad on for the next 3 years and see what he can do.
Yeah, there's plenty of work to do, and I mean, lots of names being thrown around. Listen to the NTK show the other night, going through a lot of new names that have just come up in the last couple of days. Seems everybody that can even tenuously be called a midfielder is being linked with Liverpool at the moment. So it got me to thinking. He said something last night when they were talking about, I don't know if it was Kefren Turam or Kone they were talking about, mentioning how he had just moved from Toulouse. So that would be Kone then, I believe, that's at Gladbach now. And he said, if we'd assigned a young kid from Toulouse, people would have lost their shit. And I thought, that's exactly correct. He was too young then. He hadn't done enough to show that he can get to the level that we need to get to. And then you talk about somebody like, a Rodrigo De Paul or a Yuri Tielemans, you're like, they're old and they're like, is there a correct age for us to be buying a midfielder in? Because it seems like unless you're throwing out an Enzo Fernandez or a Jude Bellingham or one of the nailed-on obvious people, there always seems to be either like, well, we don't know if they're haven't really proven it yet, or are they worth that amount of money? And then you get people going, why didn't we sign Tchouameni, before he went to Monaco? Or why didn't we sign Enzo Fernandez from River Plate instead of letting him go to Benfica first? Ron, do you know the answer to it? Like, there's got to be at least one number that everybody can say, like 22 and 4 months and 17 days. That's the perfect age to buy a midfielder at.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that because I don't buy into the premise of somebody being too young to buy. I think it does, like, the age is irrelevant. If they're good enough, they're good enough. And it really just boils down to that for me. I mean, you look at, for example, like the Kone from Toulouse. If you're telling me that he's not good enough to come in and do what Bajcetic or Doak does, then fine, he's not good enough. But if he's good enough to do what they can do,
that doesn't solve our problems.
That's
future proofing.
Right, but that you never win a war fighting yesterday's battle, right? So saying that we're gonna rejig and try to solve our problems in this immediately, you never know if a signing is going to do that, but you do know that it can be part of what your ongoing future plan is, and that's where you want to really focus, as opposed to saying all our hopes pin on signing this young guy, this new midfielder who's going to come in and solve all our problems. He may or may not. That's being reactionary. You want to be proactive in the sense of know where you're going, know what your plan is, and keep your focus on that, as opposed to saying, we can just go out here and spot fix this problem. Sometimes it's obvious that you can do that with a particular player, i.e. a la Virgil van Dijk, but in most cases it isn't. Those are rare scenarios. So,
and they're also expensive opportunities. Like, Kevin Ball says 21 to 25 is the range we should be looking at. Well, the hottest 21-year-old midfielder right now has a price of 130 million pounds to get him from his current team. Like guys like Nicola Barella, they're only gettable for insane amounts of money, and that's even if the player wants to come. So like Jonathan, it seems like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. You either let a kid go and now he's worth too much money because he's had a breakout season, or we buy Fabio Carvalho and Harvey Elliott and people bemoan the fact that they're not quite good enough yet. Like, And then we know we don't have unlimited money. We're not going to go spend Bowley cash or, splurge like we're owned by the Emirates. We have to have something of a transfer budget. We can't just be only going and looking at buying £100 million midfielders in that perfect age range. Like, that's not a crazy thought, right?
Yeah, look, I don't think there is an ideal age really, because it's all each case is different. Like a 19-year-old Jude Bellingham is a different animal to a 19-year-old Harvey Elliott, and like the sweet spot for us, our signs was generally the 24, 25 age bracket. That's when we kind of got Mane and Salah and Firmino and Genie. We kind of hit that sweet spot. They had enough of experience behind them and a good plenty of games played, so we kind of got a good view of them, but they were just ready to break out. So we got them before they became the superstars. Like, we definitely do need to lower the average age of that midfield. I think Kevin Ball was right. That kind of, I wouldn't go as young as 21, but I'm kind of looking at that 23 to 25 bracket of player. Well, as I said at the start, like each case is different. Like Jude Bellingham is 19. I'm not turning down Jude Bellingham because he's too young.
No, there's certain players that doesn't matter their age. Like Kylian Mbappe at 18 was a dead cert. Like Erling Haaland was an obvious, superstar at that age. Certain players just are.
We definitely, as I said, a key factor for our midfield is it's lacking is pace and athleticism. So you're not going to get that by signing 30-year-olds. So we probably need to hit that sweet spot of the middle around 24, 25. Saying that Casado is young as well. Look, there is no exact science for signing players around age. You could sign a 30-year-old and he could have 3 or 4 great seasons. You could sign a 21-year-old superstar, you think he's going to be the next big thing, and in 2 years' time, he's fallen off a cliff. Every transfer has risks. What we've been very lucky at, I suppose not even what we've been great at, is a great success rate in transfers. Like, you could really only say Keita, you could possibly argue Ox injuries was a big factor, or poor signings. So we've had a great strike rate with signings. What we got to go do next? I would really like to see that midfield average age brought to around 24, 25. That sweet spot. I have no issues with the likes of signing your Elliots and Carvalhos, but they need to be supplemented with signing players who are ready to go into your first team. We signed Elliott and Carvalho, young players who weren't ready for the first team, and we were banking on them being first team players. It's okay to sign these type of young players, but you also have to sign players who are ready to go into the first team and let Elliott and Carvalho grow in time. And if they want to go out on loan, let them go out on loan. But now we're looking at a case now where Elliott played a part in every game this season at 19 years of age, like in a struggling team. It's not good enough. So look,
I've got a great wife.
Special delivery.
Yeah, that's a special delivery. All right. No dry January, no? No.
Fair play.
Yeah. Look, we definitely, our midfield is aging, so we need to start signing younger players, and we need to start signing players who have not loads of miles in their legs, so that we can get back to that old Klopp game of gegenpressing and penning teams into their own half, that high energy football. So we are looking for that type of player. Like Paulina at Fulham has looked good, but are we really going to pay 40, 50 million for a 27, 28-year-old midfielder? I don't think so.
See, that was kind of the name. I'd forgotten about it, and somebody in the chat mentioned Paulina. It was another show I was listening to, and his name came up. Somebody was like, it's too old. And it's like, too old? Like, he's 27. That's not too old. Like, yeah, you might spend 30, 40 million on a player that's 27, but if you get 3 or 4 good years out of them and you're not, wedded to this player's going to play for us for 10 years and, rack up 300-400 appearances, like if you just cycle through players, and I mean, I guess, Kev, it's a symptom of the loyalty that, I mean, it might be Jurgen Klopp's worst trait as a manager is his over loyalty to players, because other, like, people talk about cutting loose, Naby and Ox and Adrian and stuff like that, and you hear the counter argument of like, that's not how Jurgen Klopp manages his team, and that's 100% right. Like, he has proven time and time again that if you're willing to stand up for him, he will stand by you, and if that means giving you a contract when maybe in retrospect you shouldn't have, but like, would it be so crazy for us to go out this month, because I firmly am in the camp that we desperately need to get a midfield body through the door, and somebody that's serviceable. I mean, the unfortunate thing, Arthur Melo doesn't get hurt, and we might not be having quite the same conversation. You never know. You can get in a player that's not a panicky Arthur Melo loan on the last day of the season, and they could still get hurt, and we don't know. But because I thought João Palhinha has had a great season so far, and a player like that looks like they do a great job for 18 months in our midfield, and allows to bridge the gap until the next younger kids are ready to come through.
For me, the thing is, what you got to look at is how do you want to play? What type of midfielder do you want first and foremost? Settle on that. Decide that argument first, and then start looking at names. Because some of the names that I'm seeing linked, or that I'm seeing people want us to sign, we don't play with 2 6s. So why are you looking to sign 2, 3, 4, 6 number 6s? We just don't play that way.
This is too good of a segue, Kev. I'm going to roll this right into the third one about us changing our expectations. But one of the things in that is it possible that Klopp, has his 7-year cycles, and he didn't play the same way at Dortmund that he played here. He played more of a 4-2-3-1 at Dortmund. Is it possible that this first 7 years of Klopp is now done and in the books? And because the players we're signing, we don't have a replacement for Bobby Firmino. We don't have a replacement for Jordan Henderson. It seems like we're trying to shoehorn future potential signings into our 17, 18, 19 midfield, into that bracket. Maybe Thiago in there as well too, but we're so rigid in thinking about that. And when you look at the players that we have, it's like, where does Fabio Carvalho fit into this team? I don't know. Where does Harvey Elliott fit into this team? I don't know. Where does Darwin Núñez and Cody Gakpo and Luis Diaz, how do we fit all these players into the team? Is it possible that going forward, as part of this rebuild that you mentioned last time around, is it possible that we're not going to be playing 4-3-3 in the future?
Well, the thing is, he's changed this way that we play. He's pretty much tweaked it every year. It might be 4-3-3, but it plays different. You watch us when he first took over, even on his second season, to watch the title-winning season, to watch this season. It's all changed. I mean, it might be 4-3-3 on paper. It's not. They might line up on BT or Sky or wherever you watch it as 4-3-3, but on paper, it's really not. You'll have one City midfielder, 2 centre-backs who split, and everyone else goes forward. We'll attack with 5 or 6 players. Then you'll have, usually, say if you attack with 5, you'll have 3 in midfield who are encircling that forward press just to pen people in. But if you want to go, I'll just go back a sec. The sweet spot for me isn't an age. It wasn't an age with the best signings that we signed. It was experience. They all had about 150 to 200 senior games at various clubs at various levels, but all in top 5 leagues. Some in Europe, some not in Europe. But in general, they might have been aged 21 to 24 or 21 to 25, but they'd had the grounding. They'd had their bedding in seasons, and they were at the sweet spot of being a B-plus player, being ready to jump, to make that next jump. But they all fitted the engine. They all fitted the system perfectly. And everything worked in unison. This squad at the minute, I think it was Jonathan mentioned it earlier, balance. When we've been really good is when we've been really balanced. Even this season, when we've been on it and we've been fluid and sharp is when we're balanced. It's not balanced now, but you look at the injuries and who's out there, it's no surprise. But if you're looking for someone to come in now, you have to be looking at someone who knows their game inside out, who knows exactly what they can do, and who's comfortable coming in doing it. And a 25, 26, 27-year-old is that one for now.
Right.
But if you're looking long term, I like the blend. I think Chris was in the chat earlier on, and he mentioned about the blend, where you'll have 2 or 3 maybe players who are 30 plus, balls of experience, leadership, backs to the wall. You can trust them. The other end of the scale, you've got Carvalho, Elliott, Jones, learning the trade, coming into the side, and in the middle. So that's 3, that's 6. You need 3 or 4 players in the middle who can come in, change a game, who can play games that you can trust, but they're learning, they're kicking on, they're going to improve. So if you get one now, in this window, fine. But long term, you have to be looking at the experience that you're bringing in and that ability to grow with the next 3-4 years of the club, because you can't keep revisiting this all the time. I think this one fix is going to have to be done in the summer. It has to be a long-term fix. You have to be bringing in the players who are going to be together and grow together for the foreseeable, for the next 3-4-5 years. And that's not going to be easy. But to do that, you have to commit to a style of play. You commit to how you want to play, then you bring in the players to match it. And if square pegs don't go into round holes, you chop and change them out until you got what you need. And I think that's basically what we've done, what we're doing at the minute. We've gambled this season. The gamble haven't paid off. We've gambled before and it's worked fine. We've got to where we needed to go by the end of the season. We still might this season. But at the minute, someone has to go before someone can come in. And even then, I don't see a silver bullet who's good enough to come in and take this squad, this team, to where it needs to go. Because if they're that good, who the hell's losing them? Who the hell's letting them leave?
Exactly.
Isn't that the strangest thing? You'd always say players take tactics. So,
100%.
This year, the tactics we're playing don't suit the players. So I just can't understand. Klopp won't roll back. He's continuing playing the same tactics with players that doesn't suit. He really needs to start finding a different style of play, a different tactic to get us to the end of the season. Cannot continue the way we're playing because we just don't have the players to play that way. I'm amazed. If I don't see something different on Saturday, I'll just be really disappointed.
But he did try to chop and change it, didn't he? For I think it was October, November.
Yeah, he tried the
diamond. Yeah, he tried 4-4-2. He tried a diamond. He played 4-5-1 for a while, and it changes in game as well. But in general, he did try it and chop and change it to see if he could get something else to work. It hasn't. But I agree with you. He's going to have to sacrifice. I think they'll have to sacrifice creating as many chances as we do,
definitely,
in order to go back to try to win games with clean sheets.
Oh, like Thiago is a little surplus in the midfield, going back to what we talked about.
I just think that someone like him is actually really good for playing that 4-2-3-1. Basically, instead of defending in a high block with 5 players committing to a press on, say, a Brighton at the weekend on their back line, because Brighton will play out from the back. They won't change.
Yeah.
But instead of trying to commit 5 or 6 players to doing that, you just say to Brighton, have the ball there.
Yeah,
you can't score from there. But drop back to the centre circle. They don't have to drop all the way back, but drop back a third. And then turn around and say, okay, well, you can come to here, but then you've got to come and break us down. And we've done it before against sides who are really good at high possession football. We've done it against Man City a fair few times, where we've had to hold on to our arses for a good bit of it. But I think we just have to adapt to the circumstances of where we are. And where we are at the minute is look at who's fit, look at who's available, what they can do, but more importantly, what they can't do, and adapt it. It's not beyond the realms of man, because all of these players go away and play differently for their international clubs or for their international sides. It's not like they all go to Argentina or Brazil or wherever they go and play exactly the same as what they play now. They adapt. Good players, top players, adapt to how the manager wants them to play. Klopp has to adapt to what he's able to do now. And as much as it might break his nuts to do it, the objective this season now is to get to a cup final. If we can win it, great. Top 4. That's the objective. Everyone is really bunched up. All it takes is 2 or 3 wins. And the table change. We saw in the lead up to the World Cup, the table changes really fast in this league at the minute. 2-3 wins, and it all looks different. Everything's rosy in the garden again. You win 3 games on the bounce, and we're all bouncing into work on Monday morning. But right now, it's hurting because of the. Believe me, I know because I've done the post matches. The performances and the way we figured out how to give up gifts, it has to stop, and it has to come from Klopp down. He has to cut us out.
Yeah, I mean, without question, it's just getting to the point. Like for me, like I consume a lot of Liverpool content. Everything on the channel and a bunch of other channels as well too. And like it just gets to smack your head against the wall situation. And
Yeah.
I'm starting to fall into the Shawnee Lawson camp, and Avo there is kind of saying the same thing, that the season was write-off. Avo says, I have a theory that Klopp has written off the season before it started. He's going to go back to the rebuild he done in his first season. Next season, not in Europe, and a full assault on the league. Then Europe after that. I'd like to think we could do the rebuild while also still playing Champions League football, that we don't need to get 8th or 9th or something like that to do a full rebuild. But like, Ron, it's the reason I'm coming with these absolutely crazy topics for the show tonight is just out of like exasperation, because it doesn't seem to make any sense. Like Gav ran a quick straw poll there of whether people think we're going to get a midfielder in this window, and it really looked like the no's had it pretty comfortably. And that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's obviously glaringly obvious to everybody, right, that we need a midfielder. And so for one not to come in, like, there just has to be something that we're missing. So that's why I'm throwing anything at the wall to see if something will fucking stick and make a little bit of sense with somebody else other than just inside my own brain. But like, do we need to come to grips with the fact that unless we get a sugar daddy owner in, that we just can't compete to win titles anymore? Like, is that the future now for Liverpool? Like, I hear Gav talk about like all FSG need to do is put an extra 100 million in every year. All they need to do is give an extra $100 million a year with no, foreseeable guaranteed return on that investment. That doesn't seem like a shrewd business decision for FSG. Like,
No,
has the changing landscape of like the football transfer economy, has it just left our owners and our club behind, and we just have to deal with that unless we get a juicy buyout?
I think we just have to deal with it. I mean, I think that landscape, the only thing that's really changed the landscape is that there are more sugar daddies involved in the Premier League than there was a season ago. But in terms of FFP being an absolute farce, I mean, it was that when we won the league, it was that the year when we won the Champions League. So it's been a farce for a while. So we've proven that we can live in this farcical environment and actually bring a trophy home. But going forward, you know, it's not as the idea that we're not spending money. Um, I think there's a couple of things that I can't wrap my head around. One being, if money's the issue, then okay, then just don't buy anybody, load the coffers, and then go big when you can. But if it's the idea that we don't have the right player to spend the money on, then the whole Arthur Melo situation kind of blows that argument up. So I can't, for me, I just can't wrap my head around which model we're ascribed to, because you know for at least 2 or 3 windows there's been people clamoring about, we need somebody in the midfield. We need some spending to happen there. We've been spending on the forward line. We've made some necessary, albeit minor, additions to the back line. All well and good, but we just Melo was, the midfield pickup. Don't know what part of the strategy that really fits. We've got some sellable assets that we could use to generate funds. So, we can still work within that model. It's just, what are we going what's the actual truth that we're operating under? Obviously they know, we don't, but it does leave you a bit, at least for me, it leaves me a bit, out to sea as far as what the hell's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling. Jonathan, I know when we first had you on the shows, you were, pretty negative and skeptical about it. Has your outlook changed at all in terms of where you see the club going?
No, I like without significant investment, we're not winning another major trophy under Klopp, and that's the bottom line. And people can say X, Y, and Z. This team needs significant investment, and I'm talking 200 million type of investment, and that can't just stop next summer. It'll need investment again the following summer. Without that type of investment, you can forget about winning Champions Leagues or Premier Leagues again, because Newcastle are coming. Man United have got the house in order. Arsenal look like they're on the way back. Like, we used to be the smartest men in the room. We're no longer the smartest men in the room. The whole club, like one thing I can about the club is instability. You never ever win anything with the instability around the club. So we don't know who the owners are going to be in the summer. We've lost Michael Edwards. Julian Ward is gone. Ian Graham is gone. It looks like there's been a power grab with around transfers within the club. I'm not going to name the man's name because he's been talked to death about it. But it definitely looks like
Bolsonaro?
Sorry?
Oh, sorry.
Like Julian Ward didn't leave for no reason. There's definitely been a power grab behind the scenes. There's too much instability at the club. As I said to you, we're no longer the smartest man in the room. We're far from the smartest man in the room. Without significant investment, without stability, I mean, FSG either say they're staying or they're not, or they sell up, and without sorting out the sporting director and our analytical team and our medical team, we are not going to win anything. As I alluded to earlier, midfield is a big problem, don't get me wrong, but there is a lot of other problems at the club at the minute, and midfield is only one of 4 or 5 huge problems. No club ever wins anything with instability. They don't know what's going on around. So unless FSG decide to sell up and sell up quickly, and we get significant investment, and we sort out our analytics team, our director of football, our medical team, we are not winning anything. And that might sound really negative, but to me, that's a cold, hard fact. Well, it can't be a fact, it's only my opinion, but it's
It's the fact that it is your opinion. That is
yeah. That's the only fact there, yeah. But to be honest, I'm really worried about the way the club is going at the minute.
Yeah, it certainly seems like they're taking a pretty big gamble going forward. And speaking of that, tonight's show is brought to you by bookmakers.com. They're supporting us throughout the rest of the season. Gav is a weekly guest on their YouTube channel now, so head on over to bookmakers.com. Find yourself the best odds. If you're going to put a bet down, you may as well get the best odds for it. If you don't gamble like myself, then you can go on there. I definitely used it for my fantasy choosing coming in for this weekend, and so far got 0 points. So, but that's my fault, not bookmakers.com's fault. I mean, I don't really know where to go from there, Kev. Like, it feels like you just start going around and around and around in circles with it. And I've got a few minutes left, and I could use that all up talking about 3 at the back. But
no point.
Should we? Yeah,
I actually agree. Matt. I played 3 at the back at the weekend.
How many did you want to concede? 5 or 6?
It started out as a joke. It started out as a joke for me, but honestly, if we're losing the midfield battle because our 3 guys can't get around enough, why not try having 4 players in that midfield? Why not try putting an extra center half in and pushing Robertson and Trent 10 yards further forward and making those 2 in there with Thiago and either which way? It's certainly interesting.
Definitely going to go through all of that tomorrow night, but a quick one on that. If your problem is up front and pressing and not winning the ball back high up the pitch, the last thing you do is play back 5 or play back 3, especially against a side who are very comfortable on the ball.
Yeah, I wouldn't press.
They'll push you back. But you play with a diamond in midfield, and you condense the play. You make Brighton play wide, and you just make yourself solid in the middle of the park. You can't score from the wings. You can create from the wings, but they don't have height up front. They look for tricky, intricate play in and around the box. So you play diamond in midfield, or you play 4-2-3-1, and you drop off, and you play on the break. You play to your strengths. We got quick forwards. We've got good, intricate passers who can pick players out. That's how I go about it. But there's a quick fix available in this summer, in this window, but someone has to leave. And it'll probably be a loan. It'll more than likely be someone like a Frank Kessie at Barcelona. Someone like that. Someone who could come in, a bit of a destroyer in the middle of the park. Strong, quick enough, but, there isn't really many others about that you'd hang your hat on.
So
the
in
idea
terms
that
of,
would... Sorry?
I was just going to say, in terms of leaving to, like, somebody having to leave to make a spot in the roster for them, would Arthur Melo be an option for that?
No.
I know we can't send him back, but if we just keep him to train at Kirby and don't register him, like,
Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
The other possibility is maybe turning around to someone like Carvalho and say, okay, you're going on loan to the Championship for 6 months. There is options. That I think it'll be something like that. I think if they do anything, if and it's a big if they do anything, it'll be someone going out on loan, someone coming on loan. It's the summer investment has to happen. FFP does exist. Ask Manchester United. They just brought in Wout Weghorst. So it's like the idea that clubs don't have to live within their means is a bit of a myth. Even Man City in the summer had to go and sell a rake young talent to be able to do the business that they did. Yeah, they get creative with their accounting, but they still had to show on paper that they had a certain amount of money to work with it. I think you see that figure banded about 250 million a lot with Liverpool fans especially. That figure, it's actually a figure that's been worked out. If we don't sell anyone, we can spend up to 250 million over the next few windows to stay within FFP. It's like the same with Newcastle. Newcastle, as long as they were outside of Europe, had a certain amount of money because Mike Ashley didn't spend a penny. So they had a ceiling of their income, their gate receipts, their wages, and what have you, that they were allowed to spend on their squad. It's once you have the accounts, it's easy enough to calculate. Ours is ballpark 250, but it's not 250 in one window. It's 250 over, I think, this window, summer, January, and May, and then you're looking at maybe readjusting it the summer after. So it's over a period of time. The idea would be that you'd front load it this summer, but you wouldn't sign anyone then until the following summer. But you also have to factor in that Queevy Keller will probably be sold. You'll recoup money as it goes through the squad as well. You'll lose high earners who are going to be going like the likes of Ox and Dabby are on decent money. So you'll replace those wages with incomings. We physically do have to bring in 3 or 4 players because we're going to be losing 3 or 4 players. So we physically have to bring those players in, whether they're star names or what have you. I had a conversation with Jonathan in the week, and Jonathan asked me a straight question: where do you think Jude Bellingham would go? And I said, if I was advising him, I'd march him to Real Madrid. Kroos is retiring or is at that age to go. Modric is at that age to go. You're going to be playing in for the biggest club in the world. You're going to be playing in the best stadium in the world when they move into their brand new stadium. And you have a midfield who's going to grow together for 10 years, and you'll be 1 of 4. They play 3, and there'll be 3 of 4 always playing. But at the same time, if he wants to play in England, we have to be in the conversation, and we can afford him. But there's going to be compromises made elsewhere to bring him in, 100%. And that's where you have to box clever. There was a super chat that came in last night from someone, and he asked us to look up Manuel Ugarte, player, when they were looking at it last night. Manuel Ugarte on transfermarket.com is valued at around 18 million euros, 21 years of age, Uruguayan international at Porto. At Sporting Lisbon. He is a carbon copy of every midfielder that you're talking about. It's just the fact that he's in Portugal. We've no doubt scouted him to death. No doubt that Porto could, or Sporting would be open to a move for him. He's one that could be looked at in this window and maybe in the summer because just because you get a Jude Bellingham, there is other value players out there at between 20, 25 million. The thing is, you got to look at it. The world record currently for a central midfielder is still Paul Pogba, right? Nobody pays over 100 million for a central midfielder. You'll do that for a striker, Virgil was
Nobody pays over 100 million for a midfielder yet.
Yes, but at the same time, it just goes to show the bracket for that caliber of player who can command that kind of fee, the Jude Bellingham kind of fee. It's a very small sliver. It's a very small bracket of player. Below that, there's plenty of. I think Rodri, City paid 70 million euro for him.
Yeah.
United paid 60 odd million for Casemiro. Phenomenal players. There's a bracket. Our comfort spot at the minute has moved on to say 44 million pounds, 50 million euro. That seems to be the comfort blanket price where we're comfortable at playing. So you get someone at that price, you pay whatever you have to pay for Jude Bellingham, because I think long term Jude Bellingham is pays for himself anyway. If you get him for 3-4 years and he wants to move on, you'll recoup all your money.
Yeah.
If you keep him for 10, 15 years, he's at your club, he's a club captain, he's a club legend, and you'll win loads of stuff. Happy days. You'll get your money back that way. You can think of it as a 10 million a season player for the next 10, 12, 15 years. There's plenty of ways to look at this, but if you're in the conversation, you want to be the English club that he picks. But to be there, I don't think you need to be in Europe either. I was listening to Elliot Anuko doing the co-commentary or the co-punditry the other night, and she knows him. And her exact words were, from knowing him, not being in Europe will not be detrimental to Liverpool signing him. The project will be key. And I firmly believe that Erling Haaland will be a player who moves for money. His agent hawked him around every club in Europe last winter, and he ended up being pimped to Man City. Jude Bellingham strikes me as a player who wants to go to... He'll command big money anyway. But to me, I think he'll go for the best football project. And if he buys into the Jurgen Klopp project with the players that we have to show him, say, look, this is what we have, this is where we're going, this is what we want to do, we need you to get us there. And if he buys into all of that, we're in with a shot.
I mean, that's as good a positive note as to end a show on as possible. I mean, thanks, Kev. See, you just lifting spirits up there.
You got to do it, man. You got
we bring everybody down for 45 minutes, and we throw it to Kev at the end. See, this is the experience that you get with that. But I mean, to hell with positivity.
With age comes wisdom, man.
You're on tomorrow, but the three of us aren't. I'm going to be doing the instant match reaction on Saturday after the game, so fingers crossed. But I want to get a little prediction here, maybe from Ron and Jonathan before we go. Ron, how you feel about the game coming up on Saturday?
I'm back in the Reds reaction, so I'm going 2-0 to the Reds.
Ooh, I like that. Jonathan?
Can't see anything bar defeat.
We've never lost at the Amex.
Yeah, but we haven't lost to a lot of teams lately, and we are losing to them. If we keep playing the same way we're playing with the same personnel, we'll be beaten. If Klopp changes tack like he did against Man City, does something different, plays a little bit different, we're capable of winning. Put it that way. So it depends what we do. But I'd go 2-1 Brighton.
Hey, you gotta appreciate a man that's willing to stand beside a Liverpool loss prediction on a Liverpool show. I refuse. It's going to be 4-2 Liverpool. We're definitely not keeping a clean sheet. They are definitely not keeping a clean sheet. And we'll continue up our good form at the Amex Stadium. Kev, I'm sure you'll be talking in depth about this tomorrow on the Friday forecast. Yep. What games are you guys looking at?
Well, we're looking at the R1, obviously. You got the derby in Manchester. You got the North London derby. And we're going to take a look at Wolves' game as well, Wolves-West Ham, because I think this weekend is, in the States, in American sports, you got moving day. I think this weekend is moving weekend. Yeah. I think you saw it tonight, you saw it start tonight, and I think this weekend you're either going to see clubs pull away at the top or get dragged back into the mix. You might see a gap opening up for the top four. You might see the top four getting dragged back in again. I think our game has got goals, and Leandro Trossard has been frozen out at Brighton. He's not happy camper. I think 3-2 for us, but I agree with what Jonathan said. We have to change how we play. But I will go for 3-2. I think we can score goals. They can score. Some key battles around the pitch. We'll go into it in serious detail tomorrow. Got a Brighton fan coming on tomorrow night from Albion Obsessed. Really knowledgeable guy. Knows Brighton inside out. Loves his club. So we'll have a good in-depth chat with him tomorrow night.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it'll be a good listen. So, yeah, everybody make sure to tune in tomorrow night. Catch Kev and the gang on doing the forecast for the weekend. Just one more thing before we wrap up here. Quick go-around, one-word answer. Starting with you, Ron. Is Potter going to get the sack at Chelsea after a 2-1 defeat?
No.
No? Jonathan?
I don't think Foley has the stones for that yet.
He won't be there next September.
Oh, okay. Kev, what about you?
I don't think he's there on February 1st.
Ooh.
Ooh, do I see an advance on that?
I think we could sack him. I think we could sack him.
Really? Oh, that would be
Genuinely.
great. It's been a
We
while
have them
since.
Saturday week, is it?
Next Saturday, 12:30 kickoff.
Yeah, and new boy João Felix will be watching from the sidelines with his street clothes on after picking up a straight red card, which is fantastic. His 3-game suspension is costing about £1.4 million just in the loan fee, because it's like 50% of his entire loan spell with Chelsea. So that's brilliant. All right, well, before we get out of here, just remind you guys again, bookmakers.com, gratefully, and I mean, we're pushing them, sponsoring the show, so go on there, check them out, make sure to give them a follow so you don't miss Gav on with the Spurs fan, United fan when he's doing his weekly show on bookmakers.com, but most importantly, you guys all probably have noticed the pink ribbon in the bottom right-hand corner, and that is the symbol of our new charity campaign. We're raising money for 11 women at the Ashburn GAA team that are all going to be running the Dublin Marathon to raise money for breast cancer awareness. So Gav has started up the GoFundMe page for it. It's clipping along. It was over 1,000 yesterday, so I imagine it's just ticking on right through there. So, you know, this is our new charity drive for this year. I'm absolutely certain that the people out there listening and watching every night of the Daytrippers community will do what they need to do, whether that's donating the 5s and 10s or just throwing it into your social media and sharing it around, because I mean, breast cancer probably affects the vast majority of households. If you cast a wide enough net, I doubt that there's many families that are escaping the scourge of breast cancer specifically. So the fact that these 11 women are all going to run a marathon together is just insane. I've heard rumor that if we raise an extra 20 grand on top, Gav might also run the marathon. So let's get through this first 20,000 first, and then see if maybe we get it to 40. We can get Gav to also run the Dublin Marathon. But I think that's just about enough for one night. Ron, it was good seeing you. Good having you back on.
Yeah, man, it was fun. Good to be back. Good to be back.
Yeah, Jonathan, same to you as well. It's I'm sure you're going to be wrong this weekend. We're going to win. You're going to have a good weekend.
Pleasure. I bring the negativity. Kevin brings the positivity.
That's right.
Gotta have balance, man. Gotta have balance.
And Kev, you get post-match duties off, so here's the hoping you miss a good one this weekend.
I hope so. If I'm the Jonah, then you're going to be full-time on full-time.
Yeah. There we go. All right, everybody. This is the viewer's voice on the LFC Daytrippers. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys around.